And that's where we want to welcome in our next guest, Brooke Goldstein. She's a human rights lawyer and the founder of the Lawfare Project. Brooke, thank you for being with us today. Brooke, what would this mean? You know, I think most people think of this as a border issue, and certainly it is a border issue. But I also know that there are tens of thousands of Chinese Communist Party loyalists who come here and by birthright every single year get citizenship that way. And they're in our universities, they're in our tech agencies, and that number is growing. And the fact that most of them are Communist Party loyalists, I don't say that in an accusatory way, it's just a fact. You don't get the privilege to come to the United States unless the party says you can, so therefore they are party loyalists. What will it mean to that population?
Well, I think what you're referring to is called medical tourism. You have people from all over the world, frankly, that come to the United States with the purpose of giving birth in our hospitals so that their children can then be naturalized American citizens by birth, what people pejoratively call it also as anchor babies in the immigration context. And there has never been an authoritative Supreme Court decision on this issue. So President Trump is technically correct when he says that you do not need a constitutional amendment. In fact, court cases to this date have actually affirmed, and many constitutional scholars have also confirmed, that the original intent of the drafters of the 14th Amendment was in no way to confirm an automatic citizenship by birth just because you happen to be in this country, especially if foreigners are in this country or if you're here illegally. That has sort of been written into the law as a policy by the Department of Homeland Security from the mid-1960s and on. And there is a ton of controversy around it for exactly the reasons that you stated. Is it good policy? Does it encourage illegal immigration? What are the costs on the state? On the other hand, people argue, well, this is what makes America unique. This is a moral issue. It's part of the fabric of our country, and we should definitely keep it. Whether there's an executive order, whether there are further congressional acts, what is absolutely clear is that either will be subject to judicial review. If there is, in fact, an executive order by the President of the United States, no doubt this will be taken to court. And ultimately, it will be up to the Supreme Court of the United States to determine whether or not the 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship by birth to those who are illegally in this country.
You know, Brooke, very interesting. And to further on something you said this morning, I was on the Library of Congress's website, and I dug up a quote from Senator Jacob Howard back in 1866, one of the authors of the 14th Amendment, and he wrote about it, quote, "This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States." So it sure seems like Senator Howard, when drafting the 14th Amendment, never intended for even those who were foreign but here legally to have children who would become U.S. citizens. You're an attorney. Doesn't that seem to be Senator Jacobs' intent, or was not his intent?
Well, yes, you're absolutely correct. I don't really think there's much debate or serious debate around what the original intent of the 14th Amendment was. In fact, the 14th Amendment was enacted originally or ratified in 1868 to overturn a prior case, the Dred Scott case, that did not allow slaves to have automatic citizenship within the United States. That was the original intent of the 14th Amendment. And then there were cases like Elk v. Wilkins, for example, where Native Americans challenged they deserve the right to citizenship. The court actually ruled that the 14th Amendment does not confer citizenship on Native Americans automatically, and that was then later fixed by a congressional act, by the Citizens Act of 1924. So it really is up to Congress, and it is up to the executive, to the office of the president, to further clarify what additional rights and privileges we are going to give to people who are in this country, whether legally or illegally. I don't think it's a matter of debating what the original intent of the 14th Amendment drafters were.
All right, before we let you go, you had some thoughts on the tragic synagogue shooting that we saw over the weekend. We want to let you share your thoughts now.
Well, first of all, I want to express my deep felt thanks and appreciation to law enforcement in Pittsburgh. I am a second-generation child of Holocaust survivors, and as a Jew in this country, I've always felt extremely safe. And yet, what we are witnessing now is an alarming rise in anti-Semitism, not just in the United States, but felt throughout Europe. And any attempts to try and blame the president for murder in Pittsburgh, I think, are a complete disservice to the victims and is an expression of really not an understanding of the root causes of anti-Semitism. And I really call upon members of Congress and, of course, the president as well to condemn those in our community who are anti-Semitic, who are fostering rhetoric that is hateful, such as Farrakhan, who has called Jews termites and called for their extinction. Linda Sarsour, who's called for the dehumanization of Jews. These are people that must be condemned, and condemned outright by members of Congress and the President of the United States for their anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Loved having you on today, Brooke Goldstein. Thank you for your time and expertise.
Thanks very much, Brooke.